Candace Owens just said something that could destroy her entire career and maybe even the conservative movement itself. Did she really accuse Donald Trump and Israel of killing Charlie Kirk? Let's break down what just happened, because this might be the moment everything changes. A wise man once remarked, "Some forces remain unstoppable until the moment they're not." That truth echoes through history. We've seen it on football fields with the legendary 2000 Rams and in the ring with once invincible fighters like Sonny Liston. Each appeared untouchable until pride or circumstance reminded them that no one is immune to defeat. Often, their downfall began not with an opponent, but with overconfidence, an illusion of invulnerability that made them careless. In the conservative media world, Candace Owens has mirrored that same trajectory of seeming invincibility. Since parting ways with the Daily Wire and launching her own show, she's been an unrelenting force, taking on rivals and critics alike, and often emerging stronger. She's challenged powerful figures, even wade into controversies surrounding Steven Crowder and Israel, and somehow managed to come out nearly untouched. Her voice has grown into one of the loudest in independent conservative commentary. Yet, as with every unstoppable force, whispers of caution are starting to surface. Some warn that her momentum, if unchecked, could carry her too far, that even the fiercest storms eventually lose strength when they forget to respect the calm.
Oh, and she's a grifter. I think she's all about herself. She wants her show to be as big as possible at any cost. She'll stretch the truth. She'll conceal information and drip feed it so that she gets bigger views. She's flying too close to the sun, and I say that even for her own good. It's not hard to see her winding up in an Alex Jones-like situation.
Nick Fuentes seized the moment to draw a comparison between Candace Owens and Alex Jones, a name that still carries heavy echoes in the world of online commentary. Jones, once a towering presence on YouTube with his InfoWars empire, symbolized a time when independent media felt invincible. His shows were fast, loud, and unapologetically conspiratorial, commanding millions of views and loyal followers who saw him as a truth teller in an age of censorship and spin. But over time, his empire became a monument to excess and self-destruction. Legal battles stripped away his wealth, platform bans silenced his megaphone, and his reputation transformed from revolutionary to radioactive. Though he's tried to make a comeback on alternative platforms, the digital terrain he once ruled has changed beyond recognition. His downfall stands as a cautionary tale, a reminder that unchecked power in media, without accountability, eventually consumes itself. Candace Owens now seems to be standing at a similar crossroads, though her path is shaped by a different set of forces. She has become one of the most prominent and polarizing figures in conservative commentary, a brand unto herself. With millions of followers across platforms, a sharp wit, and a fearless approach to political and cultural debate, she has cultivated an audience that thrives on confrontation. She's young, charismatic, and eloquent, a master at packaging controversy into viral soundbites that spread faster than any op-ed or debate ever could. To her supporters, she represents courage, a Black woman unafraid to challenge mainstream narratives and speak truth to liberal orthodoxy. To her critics, she's reckless, a provocateur whose arguments sometimes blur the line between conviction and chaos. Fuentes' comparison to Alex Jones isn't simply about personality, it's about trajectory. Jones, too, once seemed untouchable. He embodied the spirit of rebellion against establishment control, using his voice to expose what he saw as government corruption, media bias, and global conspiracies. His fans viewed him as a digital warrior against the mainstream. But as his rhetoric became more extreme, his influence curdled into infamy. The lawsuits that followed, most notably over his false claims about the Sandy Hook shooting, didn't just dismantle his finances, they shattered the illusion that internet fame equates to immunity. Candace Owens, in many ways, mirrors that too-big-to-fail energy. Since her departure from the Daily Wire, she's doubled down on independence, building her own ecosystem of media influence. Podcasts, merchandise, social channels, and a fiercely loyal audience that sees her as the future of conservative thought. But as history has shown, the the same qualities that make a figure unstoppable can also become their undoing. Confidence can blur into arrogance, conviction into inflexibility, and independence into isolation. Owens' critics warn that she may be treading dangerously close to the same pattern. When a personality becomes larger than the message they preach, every statement turns into a test of loyalty for the audience, for allies, and for the movement itself. In the political and cultural ecosystem she inhabits, that's a risky game. The conservative sphere, while championing free speech, has always had its own hierarchy of acceptable opinions. Pushed too far, especially on sensitive subjects like Israel, Donald Trump, or internal party politics, and even allies start to turn.
To just take a breather and really process everything that happened with Charlie and what it kind of means in terms of where we are. And I think it is a circumstance where we just know. We just know that he was truly betrayed in one of the most egregious ways that I think I've ever seen. It has made me lose faith in politics. It has made me fully lose faith in Trump. And my heart aches for the fact that he gave so much of his life to Trump and to politics. And they just were like, nope, that is it. It serves us or it doesn't serve us and we want to move on. And so here's a holiday. Bro, if they try to give me a holiday, what is with them giving people a holiday after they kill them? Why is that a thing? You know what I mean? Like, oh, Martin Luther King, what about this holiday? What about this boulevard? Anyways, let me knock it off. Like, they're going to give Charlie Kirk a boulevard. They already did. They did in Israel. They gave him freaking boulevard. It's like, as soon as they give you a boulevard and a holiday, they definitely killed you. Okay, there's no question. They killed you. There's no way. That's like their signature thing. It's like that's what they do. It's the Fed signature. It's how they sign off after they you. They're like holiday and a boulevard. And it's never on a nice side of town either. Like Charlie Kirk Boulevard is not going to be.
This is where the comparison to Alex Jones grows even sharper. Jones' downfall wasn't merely legal, it was ideological. He believed he could speak without consequence because his followers would always back him. But in today's digital age, audiences are fickle. Algorithms shift, advertisers withdraw, platforms tighten moderation policies, and yesterday's superstar can become tomorrow's cautionary tale. Owens' rise through controversy may keep her relevant now, but it also puts her in the crosshairs of both political opponents and former allies who see her as a liability. There's also a deeper philosophical layer to this. Alex Jones and Candace Owens both built their platforms on distrust. Distrust of the media, distrust of political elites, distrust of narratives that feel sanitized or dishonest. That distrust resonates with millions of Americans who feel alienated from mainstream culture and crave someone who will say the unsayable. Owens, in particular, has leveraged that sentiment with precision. Her critiques of feminism, race politics, and identity culture have found fertile ground among conservatives hungry for a counterbalance to progressive dominance. Yet the danger of wielding such a voice is that the boundary between challenging the narrative and spreading distrust is razor-thin. Once crossed, credibility begins to erode, and influence becomes self-destructive rather than constructive. If Alex Jones' implosion taught us anything, it's that being right too loudly or wrong too recklessly comes with a price. Jones didn't fall because he lost his audience. He fell because he refused to recognize when his narrative had overtaken his responsibility to truth. Owens, on her current path, risks a similar fate. Her confidence, once her greatest asset, could morph into a blind spot. Each new controversy becomes a test, not of her ideas, but of her ability to withstand the backlash. And with every new battle she chooses, she tightens the circle of people willing to defend her. In fairness, Owens is no stranger to backlash. She's weathered storms before, accusations, cancellations, public feuds, and each time she's emerged seemingly stronger. That resilience is what makes her compelling. But the digital battlefield she dominates is unforgiving. Platforms that once amplified her can just as easily suppress her. Audiences that celebrate her independence can turn critical if her rhetoric crosses lines they're not prepared to defend. The more she positions herself as the movement's truth teller, the more she isolates herself from the movement's establishment. What Fuentes seems to be warning, perhaps even unconsciously, is that the same machine that elevates icons like Owens can devour them when they outgrow the script. The conservative media ecosystem is as much about branding as it is about ideology. Once a personality becomes a liability to sponsors, partners, or allies, the collective instinct is to distance and discredit. Jones learned that the hard way when his peers and platforms abandoned him at the first sign of real legal or public pressure. Owens, by taking on both the political establishment and influential groups like pro-Israel conservatives, may soon find herself fighting a two-front war, with critics on the left and former allies on the right. There's also the psychological toll to consider. Public figures like Owens and Jones often become trapped in their own personas. When your livelihood depends on controversy, moderation starts to look like weakness. You're incentivized to escalate, to shock, to provoke, because outrage equals engagement, and engagement equals profit. It's a dangerous feedback loop. The audience demands more intensity. The creator obliges. The boundary between authenticity and performance blurs. The same voice that once spoke truth to power becomes addicted to its own echo. But perhaps the most striking parallel between Jones and Owens isn't the content of their messages. It's the underlying belief that they alone see what others refuse to acknowledge. That conviction gives them power, but it also isolates them. Jones believed he was exposing the hidden hand behind world events. Owens believes she's revealing hypocrisies and moral failings within her own political sphere. Both missions attract loyal followers who see themselves as enlightened outsiders, but both carry the risk of alienation from everyone else. Still, there's an undeniable fascination in watching Candace Owens' story unfold. She's intelligent, media-savvy, and acutely aware of her place in the cultural conversation. She knows that controversy feeds attention, and that attention, in the digital age, is currency. What remains to be seen is whether she can evolve beyond the cycle of provocation and response, whether she can harness her influence to build something lasting, rather than burn bridges faster than they can be rebuilt. If she can learn from the mistakes of Alex Jones, if she can separate conviction from spectacle, Candace Owens might yet redefine what independent conservative commentary looks like in the modern era. But if she continues to treat outrage as oxygen, she risks becoming yet another case study in how media empires collapse from the weight of their own bravado. For now, she stands on the edge of both greatness and ruin, one of the most watched figures in the culture war, straddling the line between fearless truth-teller and self-sabotaging provocateur. And as history has shown, every unstoppable force eventually meets an immovable consequence.
Wow.
Just wow. Candace Owens has now stirred a storm by suggesting that Donald Trump, the US government, and even Israel may have played a role in the death of Charlie Kirk. It's a claim so bold that it's left both conservatives and liberals in collective disbelief. What's even more intriguing is how the narrative around Charlie Kirk's passing has shifted. Tyler Robinson, once a key name in that conversation, has almost vanished from public memory, an afterthought in the wake of Owens' commentary. To her credit, Candace has shared certain text messages publicly, lending weight to parts of her story and momentarily boosting her credibility. But then, statements like this one pull that credibility right back into question. Across social media, people on both sides of the political divide are asking the same thing. Did she really just say that? The idea that she might be implicating Trump and Israel has sparked outrage and confusion alike. And as if that weren't enough, the backlash didn't come solely from critics. One of Owens' old rivals even reemerged to challenge her once again.
Know that there might be an out, a weaseling here saying, oh, well, I said the Fed, not the Trump administration. I said a boulevard in Israel. It's pretty clear, not clear. What she said was, they, the Fed, give you a boulevard when that's a sure sign that they have killed you. You know that they have killed you. He was betrayed in the worst way possible, giving so much of his life to the Trump president.
Steven Crowder, himself a major name in conservative media, has stepped into the debate, offering a perspective that cuts through the noise. While Candace Owens has arguably surpassed him in influence, Crowder makes a point that resonates beyond political alliances. Extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. He addresses the way Owens tends to navigate controversy through carefully chosen, often ambiguous language. She might say something like, I said the Fed, not the Trump administration, or reference a boulevard in Israel rather than naming specific individuals. Yet, as Crowder points out, her phrasing leaves little doubt about the implications. When she suggests that they have given you a boulevard as a sign that they've killed you, the insinuation feels unmistakable. Crowder argues that this pattern, speaking in riddles that can be walked back later, allows Owens to deny responsibility while still planting provocative ideas. He accuses her of implying that not only Donald Trump and Israel, but also Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow, may have benefited from his death. According to Crowder, Owens' language places Erica directly in the crosshairs, whether she intended to or not. The claim has reignited long-standing speculation about Erica Kirk's rise after her husband's passing, her close ties to Trump, her new leadership role at Turning Point USA, and the perception that she inherited both influence and wealth. While these theories are unsubstantiated, Owens' phrasing has provided fuel for them, intentionally or otherwise. Nick Fuentes, too, has criticized this same habit of ambiguity among right-wing commentators. His take mirrors Crowder's, that vague insinuations and coded language have become tools for stirring controversy without ever fully owning the consequences.
There's not a sort of circumscribed policy about that stuff. There's the ambiguity is what they will use to come after us. That's why people need to kind of come out strongly and say, we're about this, not this. What we want is for Israel to leave us alone. We don't want them to run our government. We want Larry Ellison to stop buying the media. We think Bari Weiss is a spy. We want them to stop. But we're not about going and shooting people up and killing people and messing around with that. That's not right. There needs to be a hard line drawn on this, or like I said, they will use that to hang us, literally.
Nick Fuentes zeroes in on one simple rule: be direct. When you talk about Israel, don't speak in riddles that opponents can twist into claims you called for violence. Say plainly, we oppose this policy, or we want platforms left alone. Don't leave room for bad faith spins, because platforms, adversaries, and the media will happily turn ambiguity into ammunition that can get voices deplatformed or discredited. That's why Fuentes and others on the right argue they're working to scrub anti-Semitic content out of their public messaging. When you state a position clearly, even if it's unpopular, it's easier to defend. Fuentes, for all his controversies, has attempted to make certain positions explicit. The point: stick to provable claims, not hypothetical conspiracies or suggestive what-ifs. Candace Owens is being accused of the opposite. Critics say she drops tantalizing hints and snippets that don't hold up to scrutiny, then lets listeners connect the dots, a pattern that can seed conspiracy theories and widen the damage. The accusation is that she crafts provocative content in small doses to drive engagement, to send viewers back to her channel, sell books, or grow her brand, rather than to present substantiated facts. That style matters, because when the biggest conservative voice traffics an insinuation, it doesn't just affect her credibility, it reflects on everyone who shares a similar stance on Israel and Palestine. If the largest speakers push dubious claims without evidence, they give opponents an easy argument to dismiss the entire movement. That's Crowder and Fuentes' central worry. Exceptional claims require exceptional proof, and the absence of that proof harms legitimate dissent. There's also a social and political angle people keep bringing up. Owens' identity, as a prominent Black conservative woman, reshapes how her remarks are received inside the movement and beyond. Some argue that Black commentators are judged differently when they criticize popular conservative figures. Others say that when a high-profile conservative dissents from Trump or from pro-Israel orthodoxy, it forces supporters into a grim choice: back the dissenter or back the movement leader. Either way, the result can be loss of political capital and allies. Practically speaking, critics warn Owens she's playing a risky game. Alienate Trump's base and pro-Israel supporters, and you'll lose the protective political networks that sustained your rise. That's the fear. Calling out Trump and Israel in ways that are hard to substantiate could cost her MAGA backing, Jewish support, and institutional cover, leaving her exposed to the kinds of consequences seen by other high-profile figures who lost platform or face legal or financial backlash. Fuentes, Crowder, and others say they're trying to avoid that spiral by insisting on clarity and evidence. Their plea to Owens is straightforward. Stop amplifying conjecture, anchor statements in verifiable facts, and keep the rhetoric precise. If the goal is to influence policy or public opinion, critics argue ambiguity and insinuation do more harm than good to the messenger and to everyone who shares the cause. Finally, there's a hard political takeaway from these debates. If influential voices on the right keep using vague, incendiary language, the movement risks internal fracture. For those disgruntled with Owens' approach, the next move will be tactical. Isolate the rhetoric, pressure platforms and patrons, and reclaim the narrative with clearer, evidence-based messaging. And that's where things seem to be heading. The push to distance Candace Owens from the conservative movement is now taking on an ugly racial undertone. Instead of treating her as an individual who happens to be Black, critics are beginning to lump her in with harmful stereotypes, reducing her identity to a caricature of angry Black women, rather than addressing the content of her ideas. This shift reveals something deeper about the political landscape she operates in. Once the conversation turns racial, it's no longer just about disagreements or ideology. It becomes about identity and belonging. The subtext is clear. She's not one of us. The narrative becomes a warning to others. Don't follow her down this path, or she'll bring the whole movement down with her. And if enough people buy into that framing, Owens' isolation within the movement could become permanent. It's a harsh turn for someone who once symbolized diversity within conservative spaces. Now, that same identity is being weaponized against her as a way to push her out. Whether she fights back successfully or not, the real story here isn't just about Candace Owens. It's about what happens when race, politics, and power collide inside a movement that often claims to reject identity politics. So the question becomes, is this truly about accountability and rhetoric, or is it about control and who gets to speak for the conservative right?